Welcome to the Poetic Resurrection podcast, where we explore perceptions. How self-reflecting questions can give you a better understanding of self. I'm your host, Sonia Iris Lozada. Stay tuned. Walking through uncertainty. Welcome to Poetic Resurrection, where creativity, insight, and the art of being human come together. Today I'd like to share a poem called Change. Change. Despite my attempts to immerse into my surreal writings, thoughts swirled in the turbulent winds of life, blinding me to coherent words, phrases, and verse. I'm saddened by my disconnect of living and being. There have been some appreciative changes. Some are warnings and others leave me lost. Learning from my obstacles, or am I? This is the current trend in spirituality. Wondering on life's purpose. I know what it is, but it seems to elude me. Like catching water with my bare hands, not much will gather. I used to believe that we are given nothing that can't be handled. Beliefs have shifted with world turmoil, some holding on to life, others relinquishing existence. The world is changing faster than I can adjust, but I know I can. I know it's for a better future. Untethered by duality and accepting oneness. If we want to change, we must pace along the uncertainty of Earth's cracks, with anticipation of solid ground, safety before the next world harmonic movement, where we play the game of chance. When I wrote this poem, I was feeling disconnected, not just from writing, but from myself. As a writer, I've always found refuge in words. Poetry has been one of the ways I've made sense of life. But there are reasons when even the things we love seem distant. We sit down to create the words that don't come. We search for clarity and instead find confusion. We reach for meaning and end up with more questions. That was the space I found myself in when writing this poem. One of the first lines says, "Thoughts swirled in turbulent winds of life, blinding me to coherent words, phrases, and verse." I think many of us know what this feels like. Life becomes noisy. There are responsibilities, losses, changes, headlines, obligations, unexpected challenges, and sometimes just a simple exhaustion of being human. The mind becomes crowded. Creativity becomes harder to access. Even our sense of purpose can feel blurry. And yet, there is something comforting about knowing that honestly. Not every chapter of life is meant to be productive. Not every season is meant to be clear. Sometimes we are simply living through the questions. Psychiatrist Carl Jung spoke often about transformation. One of the ideas that has stayed with me throughout the years is that growth doesn't happen when everything is comfortable. Growth often begins when the structures we rely upon no longer fit who we are becoming. Jung called this process individuation. It's a complicated word for a very human experience. It's the process of becoming more fully ourselves. Not the versions others expect us to be, not the version we created to survive, but the deeper, more authentic self that emerges over time. The challenge is that individuation rarely feels neat or organized. In fact, it can feel messy, confusing, even lonely. Sometimes what feels like falling apart is actually transformation taking place beneath the surface. I think that's part of what this poem was trying to explore. There is a section where I write, "There have been some appreciated changes, some are warnings, and others leave me lost. I appreciate the line because it feels honest. Not all changes arrive wrapped in a gift box. Some changes are welcomed, others arrive uninvited. Some teach us lessons immediately, others take years before we understand why that happened. As I've gotten older, I've noticed that life has become less about certainty and more about adaptability. When I was younger, I believed that if I worked hard enough, planned carefully enough, and remained positive enough, life would eventually make sense. Now I see things differently. Life is not a puzzle to solve. It's an experience to participate in. And participation requires flexibility. One of my favorite images in this poem is like catching water with my bare hands. That image came to me because that's often how purpose feels. I know what my purpose is: writing, creating, sharing stories, helping people feel less alone through words. Yet sometimes purpose can feel elusive. The harder we try to grasp it, the more it slips through our fingers, like water. And maybe that's because purpose isn't something we hold. Maybe it's something we practice, something we return to again and again, not a destination, a relationship. Another section of this poem speaks about changing beliefs. I wrote, I used to believe we are given nothing that can't be handled. Beliefs have shifted with world turmoil. I think many people can relate to that. There comes a point where life changes our assumptions. We witness suffering, loss, unexpected events, moments that don't fit neatly into the philosophies we're carried for years. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. Sometimes spiritual growth requires us to question what we think we know. The Buddhist teacher Pema Chödrön writes about comfortable with uncertainty. Not eliminating uncertainty, not conquering uncertainty, simply learning to sit beside it. I love that idea, because uncertainty isn't a flaw in life, it's part of life. The future has always been unknown. We simply forget that sometimes. What changes is our awareness of it. And perhaps wisdom isn't found in having all the answers. Perhaps wisdom is found in learning how to remain open, even when the answers haven't arrived. Towards the end of the poem, I write, the world is changing faster than I can adjust, but I know I can. The line feels especially important to me because despite everything, there's hope in it. The world is changing. Technology is changing. Culture is changing. The way we communicate is changing. The way we work is changing. Even the stories we tell ourselves about who we are continue to evolve. Sometimes I feel overwhelmed. I won't pretend otherwise. But when I look back on my own life, I realize something. I've adapted before. I've survived losses I never imagined I could survive. I've rebuilt after difficult seasons. I've reinvented myself more than once. And if you're listening to this right now, chances are you have too. Human beings are remarkably resilient. We often don't recognize our own strength until we're asked to use it. The final image of this poem speaks about walking along the uncertainty of Earth's cracks while anticipating solid ground. I love the image because it reminds me of nature itself. The earth is always moving. Seasons change, tides shift, trees release leaves before new growth appears. Nothing in nature remains fixed. Why should we? Perhaps change is not the interruption of life. Perhaps change is life. Perhaps the cracks we fear are not signs of collapse. Perhaps they are signs of transformation. The beginning of something new emerging. And so, if you're moving through uncertainty today, I want to leave you with this thought. You do not need to have everything figured out. You do not need a 5-year plan for your soul. You do not need certainty before taking the next step. You only need enough courage to remain present, to stay curious, to keep moving, to trust that solid ground will appear when it is needed, because it usually does. Not always where we expect, not always when we want, but often exactly when we're ready to stand upon it. Thank you for spending this time with me. Until next time, keep writing, keep wondering, and keep allowing yourself to grow through the changes that life brings. This is Sonia for Poetic Resurrection. Many blessings. Thank you for listening to the Poetic Resurrection podcast, available on Apple iTunes, Spotify, Amazon Music, and many other podcast platforms. Please visit us and subscribe to our newsletter at poeticresurrection.com for the latest information and updates.